Troo Hippi.
Hi. Welcome back to Articulate with Steve McJones. I'm excited to bring you another episode with Stephen Barrett. I love this man. And he's been on 3 other episodes as well. And what's really cool, I think, about our relationship and about this podcast in specific is being able to go back and actually look at how our process has changed creatively and just how we've changed too and how we think about things. And he made a few good points during this episode, like how, it's good that even back then, even if they are cringeworthy podcast episodes, we were still talking about things that were important to us and had our mind in the right place and brought us to where we are now, where we can have like a good conversation and feel more mature in the way that we talk and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure in another year this podcast is going to be cringeworthy again to us or something like that, but it's just cool to see how we have grown together since the first one. And unfortunately there are a few parts where the audio cuts out during this episode. I was just having some computer problems, freaking Microsoft updates and antivirus software, stuff like that. It's kind of annoying, but I added a little bit of what you need to know. It's only 2 major parts where it happens, and I pretty much bridged the gap. You'll hear it. But I did want to preface a little bit more about what we get into. We get into the specifics of our creativity, which I think will kind of stand out to the creatives, and they'll enjoy that and respond to that. And we also get into just basic life knowledge. We're talking about being healthy and things that we think that we need to do to keep our minds in the right place and grow properly, and get kind of deep in stuff. And some of the ideas presented you probably already know or have heard, but reaffirmation is always important, I think, and positive for positivity. So which again, it gets a little cheesy, but it's important. I think it's good to have. And yeah, I enjoyed re-listening to it. And I also wanted to ask you this question before going into it, because we do talk about individualism a lot in this episode. And I think, I just want to ask you, how much of your life do you live in your head, right? Because we start off with anxiety, and we start off talking about anxiety and all that sort of stuff, and we get into the mental process of where we are now. And a lot of your life is spent in your head. Obviously when you're with friends or what's in front of you, that's where you're supposed to be in the present. But how much of your life do you actually spend in your head? And then of that amount of time, how much of that do you actually enjoy? I just think that's a good question posed. And I think if you're not enjoying your own mental space, you should take steps to do something about it. What those steps may be, I have no idea. It's different for everybody, but I think it's worth looking into. Anyways, this will all make sense as you listen to the episode. Please enjoy. Wait, redo that because I went for the ear thing one time. Yeah. We just did
it's all time lapse, so all of this is gonna be happening super fast.
Really
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, so we were talking about drug-induced anxiety. But you were saying you were saying just anxiety in general is an okay topic for you to talk about because.
Well, one, it's an okay topic for me to talk about, or I think it should be a lot of people think it should be an okay topic to be about, because I think it should be normalized like any other illness, or it's just something that people deal with, as you have a friend that has a bad back.
Sure.
In a way that you have a friend that
just
has
mental issues in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't even always have to be diagnosed, but you have something. People have things that
people
are wrong.
have things going on in their brain, in their emotions, that's just some we understand and are labeled anxiety or depression or other things, mm-hmm. but some aren't, and we're always feeling these different things, and I think we don't talk about them enough. Sure. We have to have kind of this facade or this transparent, I don't know, almost you have to wear your emotions, present these emotions, but at the same time we're hiding a lot of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Just because of societal pressure? Or?
I don't know. I think it's just kind of the way maybe society has just kind of been built. Because you could argue, women aren't supposed to show certain emotions, and men aren't supposed to show certain emotions.
Masculinity.
Versus femininity. Yeah, exactly. And I think those two things affect how we then interact with each other, because humans just feel all these different emotions, and you can be a dude and feel these emotions that you're not allowed to express. And the fact that like a lot of guys feel like they can't express that stuff. I personally don't feel that way. I've always been very expressive of my emotions,
Sure,
but
yeah.
They then internalize it, and that causes a lot of problems, you know?
No, that's something that I've been actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because I have been, I'm moving out to New Jersey, and it's supposed to be a whole thing, and I asked my dad, we watched this really good movie called Captain Fantastic. Terrible name, but really good movie. But we watched it the other day, and it promoted a lot of interesting conversation, and they raise these kids out in the woods, and they bring them into society.
Yeah, I do. I want to see this movie. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah,
it's really good. You should check it out. Again, stupid name. It just makes you not want to watch it at all. But it's really good. And all the concepts are interesting because they raise the kids in a way where you think it's outside of like the capitalistic structure and just kind of society in general. And it's a way that you think, oh, these kids are going to be great because they're trained to like hunt and be physical. And they're trained, he teaches them all these like foreign policies and, like all about government and everything. They're really smart.
Globalism.
Yeah, I don't even know exactly, but you can see how it kind of starts to mess with it, like creeps in or whatever. But promoted this really good conversation, and after I saw that, I was like, am I going to be hard enough to like go out in the world? And it's like like hardness, like am I going to be able to face the world and be like, and not get killed or robbed or mugged or even made fun of in a social setting and be able to like stand up for myself.
But shrug that shit off. Yeah. And that's definitely something that's also very important to be able to do.
But the thing is, I was talking to my buddy about it. I'm like, bro, what if I'm not hard enough? I'm a very emotional person. And he was just like, well, it's not, you're allowed to be an emotional person even if we relate being tough with not showing your emotions. You're allowed to be emotional just as long. Hardness is not just that. Hardness is being assertive in general in conversation.
You can be emotional and assertive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that definitely helps.
Some of those people suck.
Some of those people suck.
But I think that's like when you're asserting your emotions on other people, and I think the other way of interpreting that is like you can feel a lot of emotions, but you can also like present yourself in a very respectable way and be assertive in like what you believe in and like who you are, that you don't let those emotions like get in the way or like make you seem erratic or make you seem like you're not fully there. Which is something I feel like I struggle with sometimes. Like, I feel crazy.
I feel insane.
But, like, I know I'm not. But to bring back why I feel comfortable talking about anxiety specifically, bring, like, emotion. That's a complex web of emotions. Is it? I don't even know if is anxiety an emotion? I don't know that. It's like because like when I feel it, it's like a multiple different emotions. You can feel that.
I think it's got it. Oh, really? So you think like, well, maybe the anxiety is like the fluctuation between
certain emotions.
Yeah, like nervous and excited and crazy.
You would think as two dudes who have struggled with anxiety, we'd know more about it.
Unfortunately. Well, that's the thing.
I don't think you have to know.
I think reading about anxiety kind of induces anxiety.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't help. Yeah, I'd rather just learn how to handle it, in a healthy way.
Right. FYI, anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. People with anxiety disorders usually have reoccurring intrusive thoughts or concerns. They may avoid certain situations out of worry. That is what Google told me, and we weren't far off, okay? So, it's not bad.
But, yeah, feeling comfortable talking about it. Because I think it's important, and it's something that I recently have been, like, dealing with.
Yeah.
And trying to work through.
This past semester has been a bit.
This whole year has been.
That's
and what I was.
Fair.
I mean, just anxiety inducing on like a whole nother level for obviously a multitude of reasons. I don't know how much I should, because at the same, so I guess kind of how I want to, it's funny that I'm like talking about this, yet at the same time I am trying to be someone who doesn't just like share everything, because I think at a certain point in my life I was like that, and I realized that this summer, which caused a lot of anxiety, because
sharing everything is part of the part of the anxiety or sharing too much?
So there was a time when I kept a blog.
Right.
Where I would just like put my thoughts or like shit that I was thinking about, which like I look at now, like some of that was like I needed to write that out, like I was fucking struggling, like what I was just like going through mentally, but like that wasn't shit I needed to share with the public, you know?
Yeah.
Like that shit.
A lot of the podcast episodes like that, but yeah.
But I understand.
Yeah.
But like just thinking about a lot of it this summer, like I don't agree with a lot of those things I said. You know, that was just like what I was going through at the time, or like trying to process this, and like I, blasted it out to everyone. At least like kind of like this like mental roller coaster that I was going through in these breakdowns and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like I like got super fucking embarrassed this summer about it, and man. Was super anxiety inducing. It's like also very humbling at the same time, because it was like a learning experience. Like, yo, that was not cool. Or it was just like weird, or like not who I want to project.
Exactly. And it's cool that people are able to keep blogs that are like that, and like they're understandable ways of processing and communicating.
Yeah, 100%.
Your thoughts and ideas. But at some point, you got to take upon some stoicism and realize that the less you put out, the more special the stuff you put out is going to be.
Yeah, definitely that. And just like, I don't know, like some thoughts are like raw and unfiltered, and you don't need to put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, people are doing that in all forms now. But yeah, just so that shit caused me a lot of anxiety, and so I think it's just like funny, because a lot of the shit I shared was like mental shit that I was going through.
Sure.
Like I've always battled with depression and anxiety all throughout, honestly, like early middle school. I even sometimes like I have memories from 4th grade feeling like anxious, but I didn't know what it was. This past year I really realized it, because I was explaining it to a girl that I'm really close with, and we were talking about like something about middle school or like elementary school, and like friends and having friends over, and I was like, I made some comment where I was like, I sometimes would get like really nervous having friends over. Like I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to say. They'd come over and be like, fuck, like I don't know what we're gonna do. You're a fucking 4th grader, dude.
We're just gonna hang out for hours?
Right. I like worried about shit like that. But like, you're in 4th grade, like you're 10, 9, however the fuck old you are. Like, you shouldn't be worrying about that at that age. And so like,
that's true.
She kind of was like, she's like, that's anxiety. And it was just like really like, I was like, oh,
it's funny how something like it takes just one other person to just point out how like, oh, that's anxiety. That how simple that was for her to call. And then you're like, yo.
So it really like opened my brain. Anyways, long story. Always struggled with it. And so the blog was like during a really hard time, and like just sharing all of those like how I was feeling, and like I feel like I just did it in an inappropriate way.
Sure.
And don't want to like just like expose myself like that anymore. And it's just like funny now I'm here on the podcast like talking about it. Yeah. And it's like, hey, here's all this here, it's behind the curtain. But I think it's also healthy, because I feel really good about like coming to terms with a lot of that shit.
Yeah,
and
it's dealing with it in a way. It's to realize that you put those raw, unfiltered anxiety thoughts out there.
Yeah.
And go through the process.
Stress-ridden.
Exactly. Well, going through the process of doing that, like processing it, taking time off to just let it sit, and then thinking back on it and being like, yo, that was too much.
Fuck? Yeah,
that was too much.
And it's kind of interesting, because like, this summer I really struggled with anxiety. Partly the pandemic, partly the election. I mean, honestly, everything, the police brutality and all that was causing me a lot of anxiety. Even though like I'm really not a subject of police brutality, but just
it was
just the climate of everything, and then honestly, the BLM movement that just blew up this summer made me think in general of like other social things, like specifically towards other people, whether it's women or whether it's other minorities or whether it's like the LGBTQ plus community.
Sure.
Like all of these people still are like treated like shit, in a way, and it like made me start thinking of like, all right, well, because you try to, I this summer tried to look at a lot of my actions and be like, okay, where was this like was there a microaggression there, like what in any sense, or it's like I thought about some of the shit I wrote in the blog, and I was just like, that shit like made me realize, I was like, yo, I gotta grow.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna be someone who wants to be, I don't like the term woke, but like someone who wants to be enlightened, progressive.
Yeah.
You know, I have to accept the things that I've done and then be like, yo, that's not cool. I want to move on. And like that was a really like hard, like anxiety ridden process, but like now I feel a lot better about it.
Sure.
And so like sometimes you have to like work through that shit, and you have to think about shit
and it's
that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, but you have to do that to grow.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've been going through that a lot recently, and it's almost weird because after you process something, I'm like, all right, well now I can just shelf it. You know, I process it and I can move on now. But at some point, people are like, no, you don't shelf it. I bottle it. It's like, no, I'm not bottling it.
You're not bottling it. Yeah.
It's like I've thought about it.
I was bottling it.
Yeah, I was.
And now I unbottled it and it's on the shelf.
And now it's on the shelf, right? And you know, it's not something that I'll bring up, but if you point it out on the shelf, you know, if
I'm comfortable talking about it now. Like if someone,
So for example, if like I was at like, dude, honestly, it's just like funny, but like, we were talking about something like being at a party and like someone like making fun of you or like bringing something up and like being able to like maturely handle yourself. Like, dude, I was like, I'm still afraid to this day of someone like, you know, being somewhere and someone like pulling up the blog or like reading some shit and like
getting super defensive about it or something.
Well, I think before like really working through it, I would have just been like, I don't know what I would have done. I would have just like melted into the floor or like whatnot. But like now, like I feel mature to just like be like, yeah, like you're right. Like I did, like thanks for reading it. Like yes, I did write that. Like I don't think that anymore. Like it's mad embarrassing. I get why you're reading it. Like congrats, but like I don't know what your attempt is here because I'm not that person.
Yeah,
you know? And I think there was a time when I wouldn't have been able to do that.
So yeah, I'm glad that you've come to
the
this
maturity.
point. Yeah, I'm glad you've come to this point
where
we're able to talk about it. And I personally didn't even know how bad my anxiety was until this past semester. And so this is the story that I was going to get on.
Yeah, you're
with
talking about.
you. Yeah. Where it's what happened is I did some drugs when I was a freshman, right? And they induced like a panic attack. Basically, they induced like a major mental panic attack thing that I associate because I was in college. I was not in a good place, and I did the drugs, and they didn't help. And
because if you're not in the right mental state, it's not going to do any good for you.
Right, at all.
At all.
Yeah. And so it was just really bad, and it just made my so every time I smoked after that, I started having like panic attacks, but I didn't even know they were panic attacks until literally this past semester. It's crazy because I would have like the chest tightness, and I'm like, are there problems with my lungs? Is it with my heart? Like, what is this? And especially with like COVID going around, I'm like, oh, my lungs.
Fuck, I got COVID, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit.
But yeah, it started back then. It kind of died down a little bit my sophomore semester. Junior year, I had like 2 big episodes, and then this past semester, I had one that was like super big. It wasn't super big, but it was weird. It stood out because I had smoked a normal amount that I would usually smoke. But I was just sitting down on my couch, like, ready to watch TV, which I had done before. And it started happening, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, why am I freaking out right now in the middle of my own apartment?
By yourself.
Just chilling. Yeah.
Just
with nobody around. And I kind of looked up a lot of the symptoms, and it was like, symptoms of a panic attack, like breathing heavy, like the chest tightness, the heart type of thing. And I'm like... And then the first time you're reading it, I'm like, oh, I'm having a panic attack. And then you freak out a little bit more. It's a little bit much. But then, so a couple weeks later, this was right after my internship. And, you know, I knew as the internship ended December 1st, I was going to be starting a job that I had already signed for January 18th. And so I knew I was going to have a whole month and a half off to basically do nothing.
Yeah.
And what I had done before I even ended the internship was... I knew I was going to have a lot of free time. I was going to take a week just to be up there and do put creative energy out.
Right.
And I had took some of I wrote, you know, people write in their notes all the time. I write little kernel of ideas for stand-ups or just little ideas that can be funny to expand on as a story or whatever.
As you should as a comic. As a gimmick.
Yes, yeah. And so I put them on little sticky notes and like hung them around the house.
Yeah,
so
nice.
It would just it would be around, and I would look. I would just consume them a little bit more.
You're keeping your brain active. Yeah,
and like maybe add something. Maybe just put another sticky note underneath or something. And add
That's
a little
cool.
bit more to the bit. Yeah, and so that happened. So I did that. It was a little bit, but it was probably about 3 or 4 days after I had stopped working. Still had a little bit of homework, but I had finished basically all of it up, and I was going to sit down to watch a movie and just like smoke and like have a good time. And it was this new Gorilla Glue weed that I was telling you about. Where I was like, I think I can handle it. And but I rolled like an even smaller amount than it usually had smoked. And it still got me like after 2 or 3, it was quite a bit. It was straight gas. And I started feeling the
anxiety
kind of come up a little bit. Yeah, and I was like, all right, I know what it is this time. At least I know what it is. And I'm like, all right, I paused the movie and I was like, all right, I just need to distract myself, and decided to just go through my notes and like read what I had written before. And it was crazy because I had a note on there that was labeled thought, and I was like, wait, when did I make that? And it was like registered in my high memory only.
I know what you mean.
Like that
I know
trip
you
were
mean.
talking about.
Yeah.
But it was registered up there, and so I opened it, and what it was me. It was this stupid thought I had while I was high one time. But then it was kind of walking through the process of being anxious and like kind of talking me down. It was
interesting.
Like, why do you feel this way? Where is it coming from? And kind of tracking it back. And it was...
literally nothing's happening.
Yeah. Well, it was a text conversation between myself, which was cool.
I'm sorry. I meant like... You trace the anxiety back to like literally there's nothing there. It's just you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
But it was a text conversation you had basically with yourself.
Basically with myself, which is cool because I add personality in my text already anyways, so there's kind of fun stuff in there.
Yeah,
that makes me laugh.
You're talking to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like kind of just texting a regular dude, and it was me coming back at me. But it was really walking. It's like, okay, why are you feeling this? Like you're saying, tracing it back. Why are you feeling this way? And at first, it was because I was working a lot and I was tired, and I just wanted to chill. And I would blame it on being tired, and then it's like, but how does that actually affect you? And it was after I had stopped working, and I was like replacing the tired with. Just kind of anxiety about not being productive is really what it came down to. It was anxiety about not being productive and just sitting around and doing nothing and getting high and watching movies.
Damn,
basically.
that trigured it for you.
It triggered it, and to
that's
get to
good
the
to know.
It's
good to know the triggers.
Really, it really was, and it got down to the bottom of it, and I was like, okay, I need to get up. I need to, and it was like, I was texting myself, you gotta write this script, and I not accidentally, but I started a movie script not knowing how much of a project a movie script actually was, and it's a whole thing, and it's like,
I would believe so.
Yeah, and it's like, but bro, like, you have nothing else to do, so you might as well just try to write some of that, and like, I guess that's fair. So I got out of there, and I was like getting changed all ready and cleaning up a little bit to start writing, and I saw like a thing, one of the sticky notes.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo. I just kind of replied. It was like, it's almost like I think in tweets. Like there was a tweet up there, and I like kind of replied and built on it a little bit.
Okay, nice.
But then it started building into this whole sticky note formula that was kind of like down the door. And then when I wanted to go on tangents, I would put a sticky note next to where I would, like, just go to the right.
Side. Yeah.
And I would make one more in the direction I was going just to know, because I was high, right? So coming back to it, I could see what train of thought I was going in.
Yeah.
And I could come back to it, but I would finish out the tangent before I did that, and then be able to come back to it. It was like a big
Yo, that's rad. That's a cool creative process.
It was really interesting, because I've been reading a lot of something about opening the creative process recently. There's a book called, like, The Heart of the Artist or some shit like that.
Okay.
But it was like it has a lot of cheesy stuff, but one of the things
shit in there is gold.
Yeah, one of the things was like your inner creative is your inner child, basically, like because that's where imagination comes from in a way.
Right.
And so you want to make what you're doing fun. You don't want to sit down and write in a notebook or typing on a laptop. To moving like sticky notes, colorful sticky notes around.
Yeah, for sure.
On a door and just like fucking around and moving. And that's the other thing. It's
more
mobile,
interactive.
it's active, it kind of gets you going a little bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really, I like I like that you're doing that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and so
that inspires me to be more creative with my brainstorming.
Just trying different shit to see how you can develop ideas even more.
Yeah.
Is really, and I haven't been doing it recently, but now that I know I have that process, I get to take that wherever I go.
And so did noticing that like you were tracing back to feeling anxious because you weren't doing the work, and then doing the work, did that calm the anxiety?
It really, well, and that's the thing, it's not calming it necessarily, but it's channeling
It's channeling it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
To the point where you're like, all right, I feel this energy. You want to distract yourself in a productive way, basically. Because what I realized is I was consuming all this creative content because I knew I was interested in the creative process. I knew I wanted to write, stand up, and do things.
Right.
But I was consuming only things that I felt would be good. I was watching comedians and studying. So this is where some of the audio cut out, and I was basically just saying how I was consuming things that, like, I was reading that book about creativity and studying comedians that I really liked and consuming all this content for the creative process. But I wasn't doing anything for the process. I was consuming all this, and it basically was building up inside of me, and, you know, it was about to... You're gonna explode because you have all this like shit in your brain.
That's cool.
That you want to like explode out onto a door in the form of sticky notes or fucking Jackson Pollock putting it on a, you know, it's like whatever. You just need to get that shit out there, and that was where the anxiety was coming from for me, at least, anyways.
That's cool. That's really cool. I would say I feel almost the opposite in the way that I feel like I'm constantly just spitting out like ideas, but yet like I'm not focusing the content that's like going in. That's know, like I'm just like consuming just like the most random shit, or like shit that's like not gonna help me build the brand, or the shit that's like not good for my mental productivity. And yet like I'm still firing out like all creative shit, and it's just like I really got to a point where I was just like not happy with what we were doing, like as a brand, me personally, like what I was doing, because I was just like, yo, like what's going on here? Like I'm just like,
and that was recent too, right?
Literally like this fall,
with and so what is your like kind of plan of action for that now that you've realized that you didn't like where you're going with it? So
well, I mean, and not liking what I like, not liking the product also is like an anxiety thing and like a self-confidence thing too. Like I was just like did not feel confident in like what the content I had created. I don't know, like I was like looking back at it very skeptically this summer and like this fall, and just I don't know, I also like realizing, which I'm trying to work on now, is like consuming content that's gonna help me better the brand, or that's gonna like help me with my creative process in like more of a fashion sense, even just like an art sense.
Just coming at it a little bit more judgmental right off
made me realizing I needed to start
So this is the other part where the audio cuts out a little bit again, and basically what Steven was saying at the end was, you know, he was needing to consume more content that influenced what he wanted to do, but also the ideas that he was doing with his fashion brand currently. Or, I mean, looking back at it, it looked like he had just got an idea, and his creative process was like, all right, I've got an idea, pounce on it and put it out there without really refining it as much. And to him, that made him look at himself and be like, yo,
this is childish. And that like really hit my confidence.
Took a blow.
Yeah, and I think that process is like a weird process where like your confidence gets hit and people are always like, well, you gotta immediately bounce back. But it's like that bounce back is like different. Like that bounce back is like slow. You know? You
gotta stop.
And so like I feel like I feel like I had been taking a moment, and that moment is like I don't know, for me it was like a long time. Like that is like I was just like skidded along the bottom for a really long time. I was like constantly hitting my head and like waking up over and over again. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
But eventually like you get on your feet and you're like, all right, I gotta start walking up. So like I feel like I've been doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm not at the top. I'm not close. But I'm like, I'm maybe like a floor up. You know.
That's all you need to get started though. It's the momentum.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think I
forget where. I had to talk about that. I had to give a little more context to like that kind of process. I could talk about what we're doing to like
better it. But
well, I definitely want to get on that.
Yeah.
But what I was going to relate to it was the idea. You remember I said I was writing down all those kernels of ideas, and I've been doing that for years, but I've never developed any of the ideas. Right? It's just shit that I write down on my phone. Half of it's like nonsense. I don't even understand.
You don't
like
remember
what
it.
I was
Like next
saying.
time you go look at it.
Yeah, exactly. But so I had kind of all of. It's not that I'm not firing off all these things. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily to be firing off.
No, that's good, but you have
it's like
to
data keeping.
Yeah, you gotta focus it though.
Right. So to realize to actually be able to use those pieces of idea that come out, that shoot out, and put them into context before you just shoot them out into the public.
Right. Line them up. You know, tie them together. Let it sit in the corner for maybe 3 months, you know,
and cry by itself, so it comes out a stronger.
So it comes back out a stronger thing.
A stronger, better face. Give it a little pandemic. You know, just give it a little pandemic. And,
no, it is good to. I mean, I'm very grateful that I feel like I'm a very creative person. It's a skill like any other sport or like hobby, you know. Or I guess I don't know. Creativity is like I guess not a sport or a hobby because like there's creativity in sports. That's true. It's a skill. It's just a skill. You know, I'm trying to compare it to like smaller things, but creativity on its own is like a skill you have to really. Some people are like born with it innately, and like I feel like I am, and some people are just born with it innately, and they just like everything they do, you know, it's just like everything's synced, you know, and those are the people that are mad successful. For sure. And they're mad successful standalone from, you know, whatever money and backing they have. Like they're fucking talented. Yeah. And then there's people who are creative, but you have to put more work into like focusing that creativity and like driving it and making it, you know, more refined. And I feel like I'm like that. You have to I have to refine it.
And and that's where most people come from. So it's not a bad place to be.
No, it's not.
It's not a bad place to be, but you are jealous of those people who just get it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, why not?
I've been watching Euphoria recently, and there's this high school like football kid who thinks he's like the best of the best, and he knew he's smarter than the other guys. And then he goes to the pro, just to college. He gets recruited for a nice school, and he's like, dude, I could go pro. And then he gets to college, and he realizes like, oh, I'm one of the worst.
I'm not shit. Yeah.
So. Luckily, we don't have like a 4-year window where we have to become good
right.
with creativity.
Yeah, man. I find, you know, I mean, success is defined in all different ways.
That's also true. I think, you know, the pursuit of happiness is more important than because happiness doesn't exist. Happiness is fleeting, but we don't have to talk about.
We don't have to go there.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think happiness is a skill on its own as well that you have to learn. You know?
That's
you have to learn to be happy. Because life's not easy. Life sucks. Life is hard. But if you can look at life as beautiful, like you have to look at the hard things as beautiful. You have to look, which is really hard to do, and I say that like I'm not good at that, you know? Like don't think that I'm not an expert. Right. But like I guess I look at happiness as a skill because I deal with depression and anxiety. Yeah. And I'm constantly consumed by like negative or pessimistic thoughts. You know, that's what my brain. In the past, I'm working on it because I really do think you can train your brain not to. Sure. I really do, and so I'm working on that. But like I default to, you know, more pessimistic. So I guess that's why I look at happiness as a skill that you have to learn because it's a skill I've tried to teach myself, and you can feel it naturally. I mean, when you hang out with a good friend, you feel happy. When you go see a movie that's good, you're happy or whatever. But like the day-to-day like grind, sometimes it's hard to be happy.
Have you seen the David Foster Wallace like graduation speech?
No.
He dives into this idea that like the default setting of your brain is just to think about the constant shit that like goes through. You're very internal.
Totally.
You're very like what's apathetic? Is that the opposite of empathetic?
Apathy.
Apathy?
I think.
No, I don't think so.
Dude, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not even gonna go on record.
Like, apathy is the correct answer. Congrats, boys. You're very inside your own head. You're like this. Even if you're in traffic, you're like this fucking guy. Like I got to get around him, and this guy's doing this thing. And your natural motive is to not be present. I mean, you think about you compare it to your past or anxiety about the future that you're afraid of, and you think about all this shit, and that's your default setting. But what we strive to be, what happiness technically is being in the present and understanding, looking at what's in front of you and really feeling it. And we don't always, when you're in that moment, you don't even always think about it because you're like, well, I'm here now. Like, this is fucking awesome. You don't think about all the shit that you usually think about.
Yeah, and then you're happy.
Right, and you're happy. And that's why love specifically is a big happiness factor for a lot of people.
Because it distracts you.
Because, there's a girl right in front of you. You're not going to look at that girl and try to understand what the fuck is going on in there. Or guy, or,
or
whatever.
Whoever, or sports team, or concert, or fucking just...
Damn, I didn't even think about it like
going
that.
hiking.
You're right. You can fall in love with
go
any
into
of those
nature,
things.
like I'm happy because what am I doing? Everything I have to do, I'm focusing on the then and now. You know, when you're on a backpacking trip or you're climbing or you're fucking going down like whitewater, like you have to think about what you're doing right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, that brings happiness to me because I'm like you said, I'm not worrying about what am I doing next year. Or, what's this dumb shit I did in college that like, does she still think about me that way? Or like, does that group still like think I'm a weirdo because I said this thing at this party, you know? And, you know, when you're going down, like hiking down a mountain, like you're not thinking about that.
Right.
Or hopefully you're not.
Well, and so relating it back, hopefully, I think creativity is one of the ways to channel that presence.
Yes.
Because it's that pursuit of something that you think is admirable, and it's right in front of you, and you have to put the pieces of the puzzle together to make the creative piece that you want. In a way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if you don't let like the frustration or like pressures of creating something get to you.
Yeah.
Which I do.
Which is a lot. Is that where the anxiety comes from?
Some of it, yeah. Yes, you can channel and you can. I mean, you're just happy because you're just in the moment doing whatever that craft is. Right. I think of like, you know, like people picking up like pottery as like a hobby. You know, that's like something you gotta focus on. True. Or people picking up painting, or people picking up other. I mean, I'm picking very basic creative art things, but
I think the idea of sitting at like one of those pottery spinners. I don't even know what they're called. Sitting at that spinner, it seems very relaxing to me. I don't even need to make anything, but just the sound of it, and maybe just watching somebody, I could fall asleep to that.
It is, but yeah, it's like ASMR is like sounds, but like visually, it's I totally get what you're saying.
Very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes. Yeah. If they're good, if they're shitty at it, it's just kind of funny. I sit here like I watch a lot of pottery videos. There's a girl that I know that like I think she just picked it up because I like keep seeing it on her story, and I'm like, that's dope. Good for you.
Yeah.
Pottery is cool though. I don't think I was never very good at it in art school.
Yeah, me neither.
art school, the art program in my school.
It's also something that I like. No, I might get into it like later, but like I don't think I'll ever get into it on my own time. I don't know, but I'm not good at it right now. Like you said, I was never good at it. Never like took.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll ever get into it.
Right.
I pick up painting.
I don't want to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's rad.
But it's still very aesthetic. Anyways, so back to developing ideas past kind of like I had that kernel of ideas, but I think I had to work more on the process of how to develop that kernel of an idea before it wasn't even before I was like
bringing it to people.
Yeah, and before I thought I was like, oh, this is just gonna be part of the stand-up, like it was a one-liner or something like that, and I wasn't gonna have to work on it or something. You know, I don't even know what I thought, but I just had never thought about the process of actually turning it from
taking all these random
raw
thoughts,
idea, random thoughts into
a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
You just assume it'll just happen.
But it doesn't.
It does not at all.
It does. Yeah. It's rare sometimes. You know, a bunch of ideas fall together.
Yeah. So how does that happen, like visually, with graphic design in a way? Because like I kind of understand it how, like I said, I'd put a kernel of an idea or like just like a little written bit that's something that makes me laugh or something. How does that work with like design? You have a little design that you kind of start with and like shelf it, or even just an idea of a theme.
Yeah, fuck, dude. If it's like an illustration we're doing, or something like that, usually, it comes like multiple doodles. Just like we're doing this like moose head for our collection that's I'm not gonna. It's I have no idea when it's coming, but that's cool because we're like taking it easy. You know? But yeah, like I sketched it out, or I mean, I say sketch, but I use a pen, so I just like doodle it out, like multiple times. You know, okay, how do I want the antlers to look this way? Do I want to look that way? Mm-hmm. But like sometimes I'll like draw something and then not look at it for like a couple months, up to like over a year.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back and I'll be like, yep, like that's cool. Like I want to use that exactly, or like, all right, I don't want to use that exactly, but like I'll change like a few things here and there, and like this kind of fits how I'm feeling right now, or this fits the theme or idea that we're maybe gonna run with.
Yeah.
It's also just kind of like a feeling too. I don't know. Like I would say sometimes you have certain, or like an idea, or like, you know, maybe we're like designing, or like just like a couple shirts, or like redesigning, if people are gonna get anal about that, or like upcycling. Sometimes I don't know. It's like a flow. It's like a state.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, trying to like.
No, you're cool.
Get you going.
Like rambling.
No, you're good, but I mean, it's a very specific thing with stand-up comedy where you write like a little thing like that. You know, it might not be the exact process for you know, designing actual fucking like original thoughts and ideas onto clothing. Like that concept is foreign to me. I would ramble on about how I would.
yeah. It's also what the shit you're given to, you know.
Yeah, that's because
the products we find.
Upcycling.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, so
but I do find it interesting. I've always admired comedy in like bit writing, because I think it's interesting how you can take an idea and then like build upon it and like relate these things, but at the same time you're setting up for a punchline.
Yeah.
Like you're setting up to make a point.
Right.
About something, about how you feel, and usually it's relatable to the person that's listening to you talk about it, because you're making it relatable in a way. And I've always like really admired like that form of communication.
Definitely.
You know?
Kind of pushing. Well, and I for me, it's where truth lies, which is a weird thing to say. Just
not agree with that, yeah.
But the relatability is where my objective truth kind of lays with people, I think. Not all the time, but in general, you want to build up to this punchline that is relatable because it's what really happened. Like, it's the truth.
Right, it's the truth.
It's the truth. And whether that's philosophical or whether that's, you know, physical of you getting... You know, it's like, don't you hate when you put your pant leg in like 3 different times and it never works?
Or it's, you're pointing out a stupid thing that people do.
Yeah, but in the end, it's still something that happens to everybody, weirdly. Like, have you seen that tweet that's like, you can't tell me we're not living in a simulation, because I've never seen my neighbors bring in their groceries before. It's like, yo, neither have I. And it's
neither have I.
Yeah.
What
it's
the
like,
fuck?
why is that relatable? Why am I able to... Because there's some objective truth behind it that makes you question what the fuck. And
yeah, man.
But
that's
honestly,
funny.
it's funny, and that's what I'm saying. To be able to line up relatability with a punchline that makes people laugh.
Make people laugh.
Yeah, and to do it properly with correct timing and everything. That's why I love it, because it's such a craft.
It's an art. It's a verbal art.
Right. And I mean, and I'm also, another reason is because storytelling in general isn't the oral. They used to tell the Odyssey just orally. They would just pass that down before it was written down for ages.
Most of like ancient human history, a lot of it was just oral, just shit
oral.
Passed down.
And
why do you think some of these stories are fucking crazy? Going back to that conversation.
Yeah, yo, they dipped a baby in a pool and he became immortal.
Yeah, what? But not his ankle.
Right, but not his ankle. We don't. His ankle was the only part. Yeah. Anyways, so what makes it kind of? Is there truth in like designing for you, or like what is more of the appeal creatively for you? Or like value, almost like what is the value to it that you think kind of brings?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I don't know how much like truth is in it. I mean, I guess some things may reflect how I'm like feeling on the inside, but I wouldn't really know how to explain that.
Sure. Doesn't have to be.
But I would say, I mean, a lot of what drives the creative process is, for a lot of it is like, okay, what are we finding at like a thrift store, and then what can we do with this to, you know, make it cooler or make it, you know, fresh or make it creamy, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of like drives the creative process. And I'll be transparent. Like originally we really started doing it. That was mainly just t-shirts. Okay, what can we put on this t-shirt that we bought to make it cooler? Mm-hmm. Which is like rad, and we'll always do that. But I think I'm at the point now where I'm like, okay, like I want to buy some button downs and then cut them up and put them back together. You know, like that sounds sick. Yeah. And that like drives me to be creative, or like using scrap, like cutting and sewing, taking sweatshirts apart and putting them back together like with different pieces. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like, I guess taking something apart and putting it back together is something that like drives me creatively. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think that's a common thing. Yeah,
a common thing. And also, and I feel like a lot of, I don't know, I feel like a lot of artists will like, some people will get really mad at this, but I think it's like stupid, because I think all art is like theft.
Really?
But like you're just taking other ideas and you're building upon it and making it your own. You can take another idea and not make it your own, and that's copying, or that's
for sure.
I mean, that's plagiarism.
Yeah, there's this
or that's biting, as some people want to call it. But like,
right.
I think you can also take it and like expand it, or like tell a different narrative. But like it's the same idea, or it's the same, you know, same way to communicate it, and that's art in itself, and that kind of drives me too, because it's like I like to create my own stuff, like don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's more fun to take an already existing idea and then just, you know, tell your own narrative with it.
Yeah,
like, put your spin on it.
There's this Jack White song called "Ice Station Zebra," and part of it is like, well, you're just he quotes somebody that calls him out about taking parts of, you know, influenced by other bands, or you're doing things that already happened. He's like, well, if you break it down, it's all one big family. First of all, the creativity is all one big. We're all adding to this creative venture.
Yeah, it's all this,
and we're all copying each other, right? But in the end, if you trace it back, we're all copying God. Copying God. Copying God. It's a really good line.
That's cool.
It is really cool, but it's also, I mean, all the comedians, again, I mean, I'm a big fan of Louis C.K. while he's like kind of a creep and a weirdo or whatever, but he has a specific style that is very smart and technical about writing comedy. And so when I write a bit, yes, this bit sounds like a Louis C.K. bit, but...
Because that's what I'm learning,
That's just how I'm going to learn how to do it.
How the fuck else am I supposed to learn? Yeah,
right, exactly. And it's just how you gotta, that's the part of the process, which is what we're talking about. It's kind of the creative process, and developing an idea a little bit further past, well, I think, you know, this would be funny, or this would be a good t-shirt. You know, it's like, what would make something that's unique towards Creamy?
Me.
Yeah,
what's unique towards Steve McJones, or what's unique towards Creamy, like what is this idea that I'm trying to like push across?
Right.
Yeah, I mean that goes right hand in hand with like how I've like realized, I was like, yo, I want to do more than just be like, here's a bunch of t-shirts we redid, like here's an idea, here's a concept, here's
and I think
the term we're trying to push.
Yeah, I think the taking apart and putting together of clothing is almost an expansion upon just the idea of upcycling. Because not only are you taking something that was used and making it into something that can be worn again, you're tearing that apart into something that can't be, into squares of fabric, and then putting it back together into something that can be worn and is stylish, and it fits in, and it allows people to identify themselves in a way that they're like, yo, this is me. This
I'm fucking different, bro.
I'm different, bro. We're outside the
which is like at the end of the day, like what I'm trying to push as a brand, because like, I mean,
because individualism is important.
It's important, yeah, and people could argue, and I mean, like everyone today feels like they're an individual and they're different and they're whatnot, and like you can argue like no one is, like everyone's the same, and like a lot of fucking people are like carbon copy, like do the same thing. I mean, that's what like Instagram just produces. It's just carbon copies, but like I do think there is importance in like believing that you're an individual and that you have importance, because like at the end of the day you are an individual and you have importance, because like at the end of the day you're putting your head on the pillow, like you're turning the lights off in your brain, like they're turning back on for you, like this whole experience is like yours,
you know,
and everyone else's is different, and even in their experience whoever you are there is not the same person you are in your head. Like,
Sure.
you're, it's like whack. That got so deep. But
Well, no, but I think individualism
Individualism,
in itself, because it's such an intriguing concept, I think it can take over a lot of topics. But I think it deserves to, because individualism is probably the answer to most societal problems we have, because if people figured out their own internal problems, they wouldn't project them on other people and become a whole thing.
Exactly.
But,
that's what a lot of individualism is like looking inward.
Right.
And realizing if I fix these problems in my life, how I interact with other people, how I process this crazy world that goes on around us.
And realizing other people do it.
And realizing other people are doing it too, and how we treat each other is going to affect how we interact and how we feel about ourselves. Like, I think looking inward like that, individualism would then outwardly help the planet.
Yeah.
And help people.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And that's the message we're fucking spreading as a brand,
that's
bro.
The message we're
just don't know how to market it yet.
Oh my god.
But yeah, man. Rebranding.
Yeah,
yeah,
just kind
of
continue developing the idea of rebranding. You're still working on it.
Just always rebranding, dude. Never stop.
Never stop rebranding.
No. I mean, it's always good to be growing, but it's good to eventually develop.
Yeah, but just the idea of growth is crazy, because we talked about growth in 3 episodes ago. About the idea
no one
of
should
growth
go listen to.
that nobody don't. You can listen to Green and Green, but that's the only one. Don't listen to the other.
Listen to the other two. We're fried.
Yeah, no.
This shit's wild.
But we just, even back then, we were talking about the idea of growth and what we thought it meant to us back then, and I could not get through like 5 minutes of it. And the idea of growth now, that's what I'm saying. But
it's cool because we're focused on it.
True. Now we're focused a little bit.
I think we were focused on it then too, because we were talking about it.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean.
That's
it's evolved. We've matured.
That's why. Yeah, somebody told me they were really nervous about starting like a blog or something, and they're like, "Yeah, but what if it's just dumb or stupid?" I'm like, "Well, at least you're trying.
You're trying. Like, you're fucking doing it.
Right.
Like, that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. Like she said, she's afraid to start trying it. Or like, the beginning of it being kind of shitty or whatnot.
Yeah.
That literally holds millions of people back from doing things.
Right. And I mean, even if it's going towards a valiant effort of like holding up a value, I don't know, that's pretty deep, but it's like, well, I've already been shitty before. I don't know if what can I actually do to become a better person? It's like, well, just think to become better. Like, I don't know how I'm going to face what you're saying if I wouldn't know if somebody were to talk about that blog or something that's embarrassing in my past life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know specifically how to talk about it and respond in a way that I wish I could. But the idea of me working towards something better to a person that is able to respond better and react better.
Yeah.
The idea of that is just, it's just not, it's valiant, it's noble, it's like something that you should do, even if you don't think it's possible. If you don't think you can become a better person in one angle or something, or
right,
I don't know, or starting a blog or doing something creative, or a creative venture. I got pretty meta with it, but
no, you're chilling, bro. I get you. It's like, I think we are at the end of the day. I mean, this is a really good point to bring up. Like, I think people are really afraid of like their true ability and like your true talent.
I think they're afraid of it.
Yeah, I think, or you're not aware of it.
Right.
I don't know. I think I occasionally see myself run away from things that like I'm like, oh shit, like I would have been really good at that, or like I could have done that and I would have like done really well. And like I don't know. I think it's a fear of like success or like the real greatness that you can become as a person, And like it's because going back to like this girl starting the blog, like it's gonna flop at the beginning. It's like that saying like in like starting like the t-shirt business or whatever. Like you're not gonna make money off your first t-shirt. Like you're not.
Yeah.
We did. Humble brag.
Oh, we made money. Fuck everybody else.
But I mean,
but
I would
it's
say
the perfectionism idea
yeah.
that I've heard is a big problem for a lot of people. Is the idea of making something but only wanting to make it
something perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The creative process that I've heard for this is script writing, but it can be applied to a lot of things. It's like, all right, write your first script, like your first full movie. Write it all the way through. Don't even think about it. Just write it all the way through. Shelf it. Write a second one. Write it all the way through.
Yeah.
Right? Get all the way through it. Finish it. Shelf it. Write a third one. By the end of the third one, go back to the first one. And then you'll just become a better writer because you had been writing for so long.
Yeah, that's rad.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's a good process to get to. Any advice specifically for people with fashion ideas or even drawing or artistic ventures? Because you've been doing this for a while now,
Yeah, it's kind of whack. Someone reached out to me, and they were like, they're asking, this is some random ass person like DMing me all these questions about like the brand, and I was just like replying because I was like, whatever, that would be nice.
Sure.
And then like, it got to the point, she's like, what? This is like, maybe this is like really shitty and revealing of me, but she's like, what drives you to like run the business or like whatever day to day? And I was like, why the fuck do you want to know? Like, what is your angle here?
Yeah.
Like, what? Goddamn, I don't even know why I just started talking about that. I'm sorry.
Well, she probably wanted to know because she needed to drive herself.
She needed to drive herself, yeah, so I should...
No, but I understand
she asked how long I had been... That's why I brought this up. She asked how long I had been doing it.
That is kind of a weird question for a personal DM. Like,
yeah,
it sounds like she's
some random... Yeah, she was... It felt like an interview.
Yeah.
She's like, how long have you been doing this? And I said, like, 2 years. And I was like, shit.
2 years is a while.
It's kind of a long time.
Right. That's for a podcast for like a year and a half now at this point. Looking back, it's like, whoa.
It's a long ass time.
Right.
I mean, 2021, it'll be coming up on 3 years when I really started like being like, yo, I don't want to be an education major anymore. I like clothing. I don't really know much about fucking fashion, but I was like, this sounds better than that.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. So, I mean, what advice do I have? I would just, I personally don't feel like I really have the status yet to give people like fashion advice.
Sure. The best
personally, just because I feel like I'm still learning myself. And I, before projecting any sort of like, this is what I believe, which granted, like, I am also someone who says like, you can say something you believe in now and then change it later. But like, I don't know. Not fully comfortable talking on that yet.
I mean, I think the best thing you can do is talk about it like we have been talking about it. And the process that you've been going through, so that way people can look at your process and kind of understand how to apply it to theirs.
Right. What I was just going to say, like, just like the creative process, or like wanting to just start something in general that like is an outlet for yourself.
Right.
I mean, I'm a really big, like, firm believer in, like, you just have to, like, you have to do it. You have to, like, put the things in your life to like make you do the thing. So like
putting those sticky notes around
the sticky notes around the house, because that's gonna make you look at them, that's gonna make you read them, and hopefully add to them. Or like for like a personal example for myself, like when I moved to Cincy, granted the pandemic was going on, but like eventually I was like I had started really taking climbing seriously in college. I was like, I need to get a climbing gym membership. I was like, I really want to climb, but I didn't do it. Like I wouldn't get one, and it was just like. But I would tell myself like, I want to be really good at climbing. Like I want that to be something that like I'm interested in. I really like it. And then finally I like went and made myself get a gym membership because you have to do the thing. Because now I go all the time. Mm-hmm. But I had to take that step, you know.
Yeah, and that's the first step where it's just like
because you were talking about this on one of your other episodes, the one for Thread. This is what's making me think about it, because you said you woke up, or like you had too much like late caffeine or whatever.
Yeah.
About starting the podcast, and you went to Walmart and you made yourself buy the mic.
Right. Yeah.
Because now you had it.
Now you
had to start it.
And it's just a shitty reminder if you don't do it.
Exactly. And so it's like, all right, what do you want to do? You want to learn how to play, I don't know, the saxophone, some random ass shit, or like you want to learn how to paint, or you want to whatever, dude. You want to learn how to use Photoshop,
make music,
or write screen,
right.
A screenwrite,
do public speaking,
anything. It's just like
rock climb.
It's like, okay, buy the things you need to do it. Again, if you don't have them,
that's
like
financial investment.
It's financial investment. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I guess you need some sort of money, or like, I don't know, find somewhere, go to the library. Maybe that's like support the public library though.
True, for real.
And like use free shit there. I don't know. It's just like
taking that first step.
And I think to really understand, to take that first step, you have to realize that like it's not going to happen in the future if you don't do it now.
That's a very
because
good
the future
point.
does not exist.
Yeah, you create
it.
the future, right?
And so like everything you're doing right now will then make whatever you want to have happen in the future. Can happen. Mm-hmm. It can happen.
Yeah.
If you do it right, you have to start right now. That's like like kind of on the same lines, but like a little random. Like my posture. Like I've been really conscious about my posture recently because I've been having neck problems.
Sure.
And like I always like kind of like I'll look in the mirror and or like whatever. I'll be like slightly hunched. Be like, well, I know I'm gonna stand up straighter when I'm older. But like. What, dude? What? Like, you have to work on that now, bro. Like, and it's just kind of like it's the same mentality.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
You want it to happen in the future, you got to do it now.
You got to start it now because it's not just gonna.
There's
one day isn't gonna come. One day.
No magic fairy's gonna come down. You know, Santa Claus isn't gonna give it to you for Christmas. Like, you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very important to consider.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people have, you know, there's obviously barriers to that. You know, economically or whatever.
Right, and it's all based off of individualism. But I mean, I think that. But the idea that is a realization that you have to come across as I think and that happens between 18 and like 25 or something. Hopefully that's when it happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I don't know, I feel like a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You know, cuz you see a lot of people like as you get older and they're like they've got weight issues or they've got whatever issues and it's just like, yo, you could have like why weren't you working on that when you were younger, you know, because like that shit's just gonna get worse. Or like it's the same thing with like mental health and anxiety. Like if you're not cigarettes, you know, like you're not gonna quit when you're older. Like if you don't quit now.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that part of that realization is realizing that the decisions you do make have long-term effects.
Exactly.
Because when you're young, it's like the only sample size you have is from when you're young. You're like, oh, well, you know, there's only been 20 years ever. And the entire world is your world. So there's only been 20 years ever. And within that 20 years, within that 20 years, me drinking a few nights in a row has never affected me. Or me smoking cigarettes every day has never affected me. It's because you're only on 20 years, bro.
20 years, bro. But like when you're 40, you're going to be feeling that shit if you're still drinking 8 beers every night.
Or when you're 40, you're going to be sad you didn't start a podcast. You're going
to be sad you didn't start a podcast or you didn't start that blog.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are old and angry.
Because
they have a lot of regret. You can't live life with regret. That's also another thing you said. I've heard you say before that like worrying is like the dumbest thing like a human being can do, and it really is. And I also think regret is part of that.
Right.
Regret and worrying is and I'm someone who has like occasionally I try not to like feel regret, and I try not to worry. I occasionally do, but like it's the dumbest shit you can do.
For real,
because
it doesn't help anybody.
Exactly, it doesn't it does nothing.
Right.
You know,
and part of it is getting over it, like we talked about before, dealing with it and getting over it. But after that, it's like that. It's one of the stupidest things because you're just thinking. It's all in your head. You're just thinking about
in your head.
What you could have done, which is never going to change.
Which you can't fucking change.
Or what is going to happen, which you have no idea what's going to happen.
Which you have no idea what's going to happen, but you have control over it right now.
But you have control over what you, the general gist of it, basically.
The general gist of it, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, this might be diving very deep, but, like, I'm a firm believer in, like, I don't know, like, manifesting is, like, a thing that's, like, a joke right now. But, like, I really do believe some of that shit is real.
Yeah.
You really can bring into your life what you want to if you go about it properly.
Sure. You can't have the right mindset. Like, tickets to your favorite concert. But
exactly. But you can manifest yourself into the person you want to be one day. I really, truly believe you can do that.
Yeah. And so starting with an image is where manifesting becomes a problem, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people. It's like, well, okay, manifesting is real. Now what? What do I manifest?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I always, as a kid, like, really thought about the person I wanted to be when I was older.
Sure.
Which is maybe weird.
No.
But it was, like, something I thought about a lot. And I would say that, like, the person I am today would make the kid that I am, or I was proud. That I am.
The kid, you're still the kid, even on the inside.
Like, I think you think I'm really rad.
That's awesome.
You know?
I was thinking that today, too. I looking in the mirror, you're just like, yo. Younger me would be like yo, that's cool. What I'm gonna
you
be.
Should feel that way about yourself, you know? Right. And I think part of, like, being able to, like,
bring that mentality and manifest like that is, all that's wrapped together.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like thinking it's a lot of self-esteem stuff.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah, and
you gotta believe.
That's a whole different thing, but you do have to believe that anything is possible, even for you.
Yeah.
You, whoever you
are out there.
We've been all over the place with this one, and I think we have pretty much come to
I think we're at a good point. So, yeah.
Thanks for letting me record and come out here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for checking out the studio. It's been fun.
Another great podcast episode in the books. Thank you so much, Stephen Barrett. Real quick, if you are having trouble with posture like Stephen was talking about, I talked to him about it afterwards. And there's this guy named Michael Seeley on YouTube. I've mentioned him in some of my older podcast episodes about meditation and whatnot, but he does self-hypnosis and meditation walkthroughs on YouTube. But he also has one called Confidence in Posture, which you can do for like 7 days in a row. And I mean, it really helped me. I did it for an entire vacation one time, and when I came back, people were like, "Hey, man, you look taller. Why do you look bigger?" I was like, "Yeah, I know. I just tried a little thing, and it kind of works." So, if you're interested in looking that up, just look up Michael Seeley posture. It'll pop up. It's a good video. I love Michael Seeley. I would recommend him to anybody about anything, just because he is the dude. Also, I've been reading this book about Stoicism. It's called Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. And he was born, they start the book with, he was born around 4 BC, around the time of Christ. So right off the bat, they compare him to our Lord and Savior. The Lord and Savior. I don't know about our. Anyways, but the thing that's great about Stoicism, or at least what I'm kind of getting on from what I've been reading so far, is kind of what Stephen was talking about a little bit with not oversharing, which is value of Stoicism and kind of keeping your mental, keeping to yourself unless you need to, and not being overbearing to people or yourself, really. I haven't learned that much about it, but I know that's kind of the value of being a Stoic. But also, he was talking about how we're all different. And, in the end, everybody's pretty much the same. They're sheeple. But one of the things that I learned from this book, this is an actual quote, he says, this is kind of talking about wanting riches or being the type to completely say no to riches and be like, well, I'm going to live on the streets to say screw you to the man, or just to be like, I'm living purely by this philosophy. And if you're being over extravagant or under extravagant for the sole purpose of a philosophy or religion, it's basically just for attention, I would say. And that's not true to everything. I think he just means for most people in the general population. I mean, obviously, you're allowed to be Buddhist or a monk and, do what you want, right? But don't do it for anybody. The actual quote is, inwardly, everything should be different, but our outward face should conform with the crowd. Because it's not about having attention drawn to you. It's about being wise enough to know yourself to the max and figure out the pathways in your brain and how all that works, and then be a light for other people. But you don't want to be like, you don't want it to feed into your ego, I guess. I don't know, more on that when I finish the book. But I thought you might find it interesting, and I think that's all I've got. So have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening. I love you, amen. Okay, bye. Just do a little say something testing.
Testing.
Do a little bit.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. All right. See.